Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win, and we're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today on the channel, we are taking a look at the Legacy of Dreams Poison Scythe build for the Necromancer class, a set build that was originally considered S tier. Alright, let's get into it. Andriel's Visage. Attacks release a poison nova that deals 398% weapon damage as poison to enemies within 10 yards. You must run this, as well as Aquila Cuirass. While above 93 primary resource, all damage take is reduced by 50%. Razos Volition, Skeletal Mage gains the effect of Gift of Death of Ruin. Stone Gauntlets, basically every time you get hit, you get armor by 50%, but it reduces your speed for every hit that you take. But it's still very helpful for this build. Dainty's Binding, gain an additional 41% damage reduction when there is an enemy afflicted by a curse. Depth Diggers, primary skills deal 95% additional damage. You must run this as well. Ice Climbers, gain immunity to freeze and immobilize effects. We want Conventional Elements and Crispin Sentence. Legacies, Ledger's Sustain. Tragul's Corroded Fang, this is where main source of damage comes from. Curse Scythe Rune. Grim Scythe now has 100% damage when it inflicts curses. Now keep in mind, you must run this legendary gem, the Legacy of Dreams. So, while you have no set bonuses equipped, every legendary item you have equipped increases your damage dealt by a certain amount based on your level. And when they're ancient legendary, you get even more power. Grim Scythe you want to run here. Bone Sparrow. Blighted Marrow, Dislocation for Bone Armor, Simulacrum, Blood and Bone, Siphon Blood, Power Shift, and you want Skeletal Mage, Contamination here. For the passive, Spreading Malediction, Eternal Torment, Swift Harvesting, Stand Alone, Kunai's Cube, Navari's Black Death, Illusionary Boots, and a Haunted Visions, because you need it for Simulacrum. That's what my Paragon looks like. Again, you must run the Legacy of Dreams gem. You want on your follower Nemesis Bracers, Flavor of Time, and Broken Crown. Goldskin is nice to have, but it's not bad. Okay, so first thing you do when you get into the Grey Rift is you activate your Simulacrums. Then you are going to release one of your Skeletal Mages, which will expend the amount of essence that you have. Then you can start swinging around your Poison Scythe. Then every so often you want to release another Skeletal Mage, because the point is we want to have less essence so you can do the maximum amount of damage. And then when you factor in what the Grim Scythe ability is going to do on Tragul's Corroded Fang, what the curse is being applied on everything to start, you do a tremendous amount of damage. So basically what you're doing is you're just basically releasing your Skeletal Mage, then you're using your Grim Scythe. Every once in a while, you are going to want to activate your Bone Armor Dislocation so you can get some stacks of your Bone Armor as well. And there, pretty much, you're just going to be profiting. It's a very hard armor to make in the sense that it's going to take you a very long time to get the pieces that you need required for this. On top of that, before you even really use this build, one of the things is you're going to have to get your legendary gem up to a super high level, because this gem, this build is very reliant on the higher your Legacy of Dreams gem is, the more damage that you're able to do. Now keep in mind, this is a mixed mosh of various different things. So, first of all, it's going to be a lot harder to farm for it. I don't have a way necessarily that's going to be great for you. The only thing I could say is if you're playing Necromancer, use the Pestilence Corpse Lance variation build for speed farming. And speed farm maybe at lower grade risk, Torment 13 difficulty, and try to acquire all the pieces that you need there. The other issue with all the pieces of gear that you need for this build is the fact that you are going to run into a situation where you know what, it's not legendary, and you're going to have to keep farming for the legendary pieces, because you want every piece of this gear to be legendary or primal ancient legendary to get the maximum of the Legacy of Dreams build out of this. So it's definitely all things that you have to take into consideration before you even try to strive for a build like that. Now, in terms of optimization, what should you be doing with this armor? Well, those first two things I told you. Legacy of Dreams as high as possible, and all pieces of gear ancient legendary or primal ancient legendary. Those are the first two priority. Second priority from there, on your helm, make sure you have a socket so you can put a gem in it. On top of that, you would need at least crit hit chance 6.0% on your helm. On your gloves, I recommend crit hit chance 6.0%, attack speed at least 8.0%, and critical hit damage 50%. If possible, those three stats will be a big difference maker into whether you can clear an additional 10 or even an additional 20 greater rifts. From there, further optimization, what should you be looking for? Well, in this particular situation, you don't really want primary resource cost reduction, because you want to be able to expend a lot of your primary resources so that you can start swinging for things. So I would recommend, if anything, that you get cooldown reduction wherever you can necessarily fit it into. Anywhere that you can necessarily buff your Grim Scythe, Curse Scythe a little bit further, definitely do so, because remember that's your primary source of damage. Cooldown reduction is kind of important because one fatal flaw with this particular armor that people tend to overlook and then they complain about is the fact that if you die with this particular armor while you're doing a run, it takes a very long time for your simulacrums to come back from cooldown. And the big issue with that is that if they come down from cooldown and you don't have them, you are a lot more susceptible. Your Grim Scythe doesn't work because remember, every time you're swinging that scythe, two other things are swinging with you. So it's like if you're attacking with three scythes at the same time. So that's definitely something you have to look for. Another thing that you want is in terms of your legendary gems, Bane of the Trap, Bane of the Stricken, and then I would use Simplicity Strength because you are using the Grim Scythe. So Grim Scythe, is a normal primary resource attack, so it does work in your benefit to do that. Also, obviously level, or not, well, you need Simplicity Strength, I'd say, Bane of Stricken, Correction, and a Legacy of Dreams, because you can't not have a Legacy of Dreams in here. It wouldn't work that way, right? So my apologies on that in retrospect. Okay, so let's go back to town. Let's see how this clear time did here. Again, remember, you always have to use your skeletal mages. So Grey Rift 60, Torment 13, 3 minutes and 34-second clear time. I'm going to show you Grey Rift 80. I'm going to skip over 70 because this armor takes a long time to clear through things. So I'd rather show you on a higher level that's plus Torment 16 as to how it does. Same strategy as before. We're going to want to get our simulacrums up as soon as possible. We need to get a little bit of distance. Then we are going to use our Grim Scythe to take out targets here. So same strategy as before. You want to expend things. When we get a second, we'll use our Grim Scythe. We haven't really had much of a moment here, unfortunately, because of everything that's going on. Let's see here. Let's keep moving forward. Another thing that you need to do with this particular armor is activate your bone armor. So definitely make sure that you maintain your stacks of bone armor here. Alright, we're doing pretty good. Always keep in mind that for this build, you're going to need to use your skeletal mages whenever possible as well. Okay, let's move back here. Let's use the skeletal mage. The problem with this armor, as you can see also, is that it's very susceptible to, as you're going higher up in the Greater Rifts, there is just so many different enemies coming at you, and there is high potential that you're going to die. It's a good thing that I didn't use my simulacrum just yet, because had we used our simulacrum, we would have been put into a very bad situation. In fact, I don't want to activate my simulacrum right now, just because I have a feeling that we would just die pretty quickly. I'm trying to get through these enemies first before we start activating it. Okay. We should be okay now. Let's swing it here. Alright, we took those enemies out. Let's take that enemy out. And let's keep moving forward. For this armor used to be one of the armors that did incredibly well in your seasonal journey. It was S tier at one point because it's just good at pushing a very high greater. Obviously, this particular season, since the question has come up in comment section, is could you use, theoretically, the Legacy of Dreams Poison Scythe build for Echoing Nightmares? Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news for this particular build, but the answer to that is no. The issue with Legacy of Dreams Poison Scythe is the fact that Echoing Nightmares, you're fighting multiple enemies that are constantly exploding left and right. So because they're exploding and there's tons of explosions going on, you're very susceptible to taking a death. The other problem with Legacy of Dreams, as you see, is it's an up-close and personal type of attacking thing. So if you're swinging these Grim Scythes that you see here with the enemy targets, and there's a lot of them dying in succession, you're going to have multiple explosions, and you won't be able to really mitigate that. On top of that, because we're using Stone Gauntlets in particular, Stone Gauntlets, when you take the hit, are going to slow you down. So if anything, what that does is usually it would help you, but in this particular case, it's going to hurt you. Because the explosions are going to, you're going to be slowed down, and you're going to be slowed down so much you're not going to be able to escape from explosion. So mobility is really the big issue with why Legacy of Dreams Poison Scythe is not a viable build anymore, in particular for at least S tier play for the Echoing Nightmares for Season 26. On top of that, it's lost a lot of favor to builds like Bone Spear Necromancer, where you can just zone from far away and have to be up close and personal. I'm not saying that this armor is still not bad. It's actually a very good armor, and it will push high greater rifts when you're fully optimized. The problem is that you spend so much time trying to optimize this particular set that you have to question whether it's really worth it when there's other armors that can get you to the sacred promised land, that being greater rift 150. So really, that's another thing. So, like I said before, I'm a big fan of the Echoing Nightmares. I do hope that they are going to keep them available in Diablo 3. I think it's something that should be a new endgame in general. Unfortunately, it seems like at the moment it's just going to be one of the many seasonal events that we've had in the past where it's just for that season. Like the Ethereals from Season 24 of Diablo 3. And last season, it was the gems that were based off the Diablo 2 lore as well. Those soul shards, as they were called. So, I have a feeling probably Echo Nightmare is going to be a one-time type of thing, which is a shame because it adds such an interesting layer to Diablo 3. We haven't had really any new endgames and any type of true new features outside of seasonal in a while. I think this is one of the few things that's being very positively received by the Diablo 3 community, so I don't understand why we can't necessarily continue to do so with it. Now, subsequently, there are some people who, instead of using Adriel's Visage, will use in place of that a Leoric's Crown, or the Broken Crown, I believe. No, that's the Leoric's Crown that they use. You can go that route. The only problem with that is you lose out on significant damage of your poison abilities. So, I don't think it's in your benefit to decrease the amount of poison abilities that you have with this particular build, since poison plays a very large factor in being able to secure a lot of those hits. Because remember, whenever the enemies are being kind of like hit with poison, it's kind of whittling them a tiny bit away, so that's it. Also keep in mind with this armor, like, you gotta be careful. Again, if you get too aggro, your simulacrums will die, and then you will be in a situation where you cannot really take care of enemies generally easy. You could button mash if you wanted to, or mouse smash if you're playing on a mouse and keyboard, to just constantly swing the scythe around and around. I don't like to generally do that, because there's times when you might just stay too stationary and get hit by projectiles. This armor suffers a bit from projectiles in particular, and also just a lot of AoE. It's just a shame, because when you think about it, the end game of this particular season is nothing but AoE effects. So, like I was saying before, also, in previous videos, we recently started doing Diablo 3 content on our Twitch channel, same name, twitch.tv/Dreadscape Gaming. We've been documenting our seasonal journey for Season 26 of Diablo 3. I was playing as the Barbarian, which the first couple of streams were a little rough because of Barbarian not being able to handle early endgame particularly well, because he had always up and close and personal. If you don't get a good weapon from the start, which unfortunately I did not get a very good weapon from the start, it put me at a pretty hard position to do well. Okay, so Rift Guardian's coming up. What are we going to do? Same strategy. Remember, you must get rid of one of your skeletal mages and dump your essence so that you do the maximum damage of your poison scythe. So definitely make sure. Then you're going to swing, and as you see there, if you have your simulacrums up, you should be able to take out most Rift Guardians generally easy. Keep in mind that this is a very slow armor, so if you're looking to just get fast clear times, you're going to have to look elsewhere, because that's just not what this armor does. This armor is very, very effective at pushing. This armor is very, very weak in Echoing Nightmares, so you're going to need to have a different type of build that you're working with for those. So if you're playing Necromancer, maybe Inaris Corpse Explosion or your Blood Nova. If you are playing maybe Masquerade Burning Carnival, it seems to be a very good option. I would even dare say Rothmon, if you could get the minions to do everything that they need to. Maybe even Pestilence Corpse Lance is a little bit better. Alright, so let's see. This is a Greater Rift 80, 6-minute clear time. Full optimization where we have all our gear augmented with legendary gems. We probably could get that down to about maybe 4 minutes, 3 minutes, depending. Make sure you upgrade your armor with augmentations, legendary gems. Level 80 or higher, preferably, for that. If you want to do maximum type of damage, it's very important. Primal Ancient Legendaries are going to be so hard to get for this particular build, so if you get one, I was fortunate that I already had one for my shoulder piece, because I used it for a different build and it had dropped, so I just kind of interchange it for between Necromancers and different sort. Keep in mind, obviously, since this is not a set armor, this is not your starter set for the Necromancer in Season 26. Instead, that is the Pestilence Master Shroud armor, which I do have a Season 26 starter guide for you. For that, again, that armor does okay up until about Tournament 13. Tournament 15, 16, it struggles tremendously just based on the fact that it has to rely on so much different cooldown and everything of the sort to do well. I was looking to see if we got any decent gear or loot out of that. Unfortunately, we did not with that run. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's video. As always, a like on this video is greatly appreciated. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, definitely consider doing so, as it helps the channel grow. And I will see you for the next Diablo 3 video. Till next time, guys.